Hi, I'm Mrs. Crane, and this is a user guide to my classroom intended to give you and your child some tips on how to be successful in my class. Once you've watched the video, please talk to your child and then sign the form that he or she brought home from school to let me know that you have seen the video.
All right, so considering that you are watching this video, I am going to assume that your child has already shown you how to access my classroom website, but if you would like to see a few different options for how to get to the website, you can pause the video right now and read through this because there are a variety of ways. I find most people prefer to just Google Crane, chemistry, get to my website, and then click on the link for the appropriate class. My website is a pretty important tool in this class. Some of the things it contains, a calendar that is always up to date with information on assignments, upcoming assessments, and due dates. This is also where students will access the video lectures, which I will discuss more shortly. And there are also electronic copies of all the handouts in case one gets lost or left at school. So about these video lectures, one thing that is different from my classroom is that I use a flipped model, which basically means that where students used to listen to classroom lectures in school and then go home to attempt practice problems, I have now created video lectures of all of the information, and they will have time in class to practice problems, do labs, and other activities that apply the material. We've been doing this for a couple years. I find it really beneficial, and I will go through some of the advantages of the flipped model shortly. But the basic learning pattern then, which is what's really flipping, is that students are given a packet of work for each unit. The unit gets broken up into various topics, which is covered, each of them are covered in a video lecture on my website. So most nights, students will be assigned to watch a video and take notes into their packet. Then the next day, they'll come into class and do a related activity or assignment. Often these are practice problems, labs, a variety of different things. Then once we've done a couple of these videos and activities, they are going to self-assess their own progress, how they feel that they're understanding the various learning targets. And then they're going to take a target check. This is a formative assessment. Some of you might think of this as a quiz. The target check is actually not a grade that's going to go into the grade book. I will discuss this more. Well, it will go into the grade book, but it's not actually going to be part of their calculated grade. So you and the student will be able to see how they've done on this target check. But if they don't do so well, rather than immediately affecting and bringing down their grade, it's just going to tell them that they need a little bit more practice before they get to the graded unit assessment. So advantages to the flipped model, there really are quite a few. First of all, it really frees up class time so that I can work directly with students, and often students who are understanding material can work directly with students who are struggling also. Class time isn't wasted with kids just sitting passively taking notes. It's better for them to do that sort of passive stuff that they're not going to get stuck on at home. In the past, when students were doing the practice problems and activities at home, they might get stuck, not know how to fix their problem, and then they give up and they come into class without their homework done because they didn't know how to continue. Also, when they're watching these videos, at any time, they're strongly encouraged to pause the video while writing down notes, rewind part of the video if they need to rehear something or if they lost focus. You can't do that when you're listening to a lecture live in class. Also, as review, they can rewatch videos, especially as they're preparing for a unit test or a final exam. If students are absent, they still have full access to these notes. And there are always, every trimester, a handful of students who decide that they want to work ahead. Sometimes these are students who want to be able to get to extra challenge material at the end of the trimester. Sometimes these are students who know that they're going to get really busy later in the trimester when a sport or a job starts up, and so this allows students to manage their own time a little bit more effectively. So since this is slightly different than your traditional classroom, I want to give you and your students some tips for how to be successful in my class. First of all, it is imperative that students watch the videos. This is where they're going to get most of the information that they end up being tested on. So students, you will be required to show me detailed notes with all the definitions and examples written out. We'll do sporadic video checks. 2, you need to come in and do the target practice worksheets. This is where you're going to find out if you really understood what you thought you understood as you were watching the video, and you're also just going to become more comfortable gradually learning to answer the questions independently without having to turn back to your notes or get help from someone. Next, you're going to self-assess. So this is where you tell me how well you think you understood the material as you practiced it. All right, the next step is taking the target check formative assessment. So this is where I get to find out if you really are understanding the material as well as you think you are. It also gives me a chance to give you feedback to let you know where you may be having confusion or what you need to do in order to be successful on the upcoming graded unit tests. We'll also be working on an ongoing project through the first few units where you'll get to apply the concepts that we're learning in class to real life. And then the labs are also another way that we'll be able to make some connections between class concepts and real life applications. At the end of each unit, at the end of each packet of material, we will have a unit test, which is where you prove to us that you did learn the material. And this is what will be graded and will determine your grade in the class. Students will get any relevant equations, and if the student has used class time appropriately, progressed through the unit at a reasonable pace, really taken advantage of the time that they've been given, but they struggle and do poorly on the unit test, they will be given the opportunity to retake the test for that unit. And then last but not least, at the end of the trimester, there will be a cumulative final exam that will account for 20% of the total trimester grade, with all of the assessment, the unit test grades making up the other 80%. So, parents. When you go on to Parent Connect or MyStar, the online grading system, you need to be aware of what you're going to see and what it means. So your student's grade in this course is going to be determined solely by the unit test scores, 80% of the grade, and the final exam, 20% of the grade. But you will also see some other things on MyStar that aren't going to calculate into that, but are simply my way of communicating to you and to the student of how much work they're doing in class in order to prepare for the unit tests and the final exam. So when I go through and do practice worksheet checks and video note checks, I will record on a scale of 0 to 4 how much has been completed. Not whether it's necessarily correct or not, but how much has been completed. So a 4 means the assignment was fully completed, a 2 means it's been partially completed, and a 0 means that the assignment was not attempted. On our formative assessment, our target checks, right? These are going to be like little ungraded quizzes. So the student will be ranked on a scale of 1 to 4. So a 4 means the student can answer all the assigned questions correctly without looking back at notes or getting help. A 3 means the student can answer most of the questions correctly, but maybe need a little help from notes or from a classmate. A 2 is that the student struggled on most of the assigned questions and maybe even looking back in the notes still didn't know how to answer them. And then a 1 was that the student could not answer any of the questions. So when you see those grades online on a scale of 1 to 4, Those are simply for communication as to the student's progress and preparation for the upcoming assessment, but they're not being calculated into the final course grade. So you may be wondering what some of the advantages are to this grading model, right? Why are we going to go ahead and give them assessments, these formative assessments that aren't actually being calculated into the grade? So one major advantage is that now the students' grades are going to reflect their knowledge rather than their behavior. So this increases student choice. The students and I will have conversations to decide how much practice each individual student needs in order to be successful. Some students may need to complete a lot of practice worksheets. Some students may only need a few. So they're not doing busy work just because the teacher assigned this many problems to every single student. Next, students are not penalized for learning at different speeds. Practice worksheets are intended to be used as a tool for learning, and there are some students who at first are going to struggle quite a bit, but eventually, by the time they take the unit test, have figured things out. It wouldn't be fair to grade them on the very first practice that they attempted. Next, this grading model demonstrates to all of us, especially our students, that learning is really not about the accumulation of points in a grade book. It's about understanding material, and learning is really the goal of school. And then finally, the students are going to be able to know how well they are progressing because they're going to be informed of their strengths, and they're also going to be informed of what they need to do to improve and still have time to make those improvements before they're graded. All right, so as a continuation of the communication between me and you as the parent, I will send out occasional parent emails using the email addresses that are included on Parent Portal on MyStar. I will send out an email at the end of the day, Friday of this first week of school. So if you do not receive one by the end of the day on Friday, an email from me, please go into Parent Portal, MyStar, through the Farmington main page and update your contact information. It may be that the person who entered in your email address made a typo because it probably wasn't you. It was whoever registered you. So just double check that. And again, this parent portal where you see the students' grades and where your contact information is located can be accessed through the main Farmington website. So that is the end of the presentation. If there are any questions or concerns, you can check my website, maybe find the answer there. You can send me an email, or you can call my voicemail and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Please do make sure that you communicate with your child and sign the bottom of the syllabus that they should have brought home, confirming that you have watched this video. I look forward to continuing to work with you throughout the trimester.